A cult has rigid rules and boundaries. It has unquestioned dogmas. And we all live in multiple cults in an environment, in a cultural environment, in which the status quo, the way things have been, the way things are too big for most of our conscious minds to digest. And so the identity of a cult, the identity, the pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being that defines an identity, the pattern that says, this is me because I do these things, I think these things, and I belong to this cult that does these things and says these things and does not say these other things and does not do these other things. A cult is an ossified dogma where a large region of the pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being, is off the table. Now, in every cult, in every identity, because every identity, every ego, is a microcosm of typically the cult patterns that it was immersed in. We think somehow a dandelion just chooses to be a dandelion, and it has nothing to do with the genetic and energetic patterns that pretty much guarantee that when you put that seed in soil and water, it will become another dandelion versus all the other different plants that are out there. Children, infants in particular, are unquestioning, sympathetic recipients of the patterns of their cult. And just like you and I do not question many of the dogmas that govern our decisions, that govern our patterns of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being. I didn't question whether the idea of jewelry was good. I didn't question the idea of whether or not blue was a masculine color. I didn't question the idea that I should be clothed today. I didn't question the idea that my beard should be trimmed to be a little neater. I didn't question the idea of driving on the right side of the road, of eating, of tipping the waitress. All of these things are just part of my identity, my pattern, the pattern that I associate with, that I call me. And while at some point I probably evaluated many of these things, it's like, oh, it's too many things to evaluate on a daily basis. Let's just take 85, 90% or more of the pattern and just put it in dogma. Put it in the domain of the brain that is repetitious, that is unquestioning. And these unquestioning memes tie in with an unquestioning cult, which is the foundation of a culture, because the cure, the movement within the cult, is its life, is its growth, is its evolution. The ossification, the status quo, the vast majority is the cult. It's the way things are done until you travel halfway around the world and find a larger majority who's doing the exact opposite of your majority and doing just fine. Because every cult has the same promise to its members. Every cult promises. If you obey the rules, if you stay in the line, if you don't cross the taboo, you will be healthy, wealthy, and wise. And every cult makes another, even more audacious unscientific, and absurd promise. And the promise of every cult is join us. Why? Not because we're the stupidest, not because we're the most unscientific, not because we are complete and utter losers in this domain and that domain and this other domain over here. No, 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 no. Join our cult because it is the best cult, because it is the only cult, because it is the right cult. And every one of those other cults, all the cults throughout time, throughout geography, they're wrong. Our cult is the best one. And if only all the other people in all those places and times saw things the way we saw them, then they would be enlightened. They would be inducted, in fact, into our cult, and we could live peacefully. We could live happily. We would all be healthy, wealthy, and wise because we're all doing the same thing, thinking the same thing, feeling the same thing, being the same way, saying the same things. And we'll all fit neatly into the domain of the cult, and it will be wonderful. Of course, the data suggests a slight problem with the promise. Anthropologists indicate that there have been well over 10,000 languages, 10,000 cults, 10,000 mythologies, 10,000 religious cosmologies. We're the only materialistic religion of the lot. If you take 99% of all cults in human history, there's been a belief in the transcendent. But we, of course, know that 99% of all human beings throughout all human history, throughout geography, we know that they're wrong. Just like 95% of the extinct cults knew that everyone else was wrong as well. Now, the cult-like aspect of every culture, you have the questioning, curiosity, growing, evolving. Intelligence is iterative. If you want to find the most intelligent part of the cult, it is the part that is changing. It is the part that is growing, which is to change. It is the part that is diverging from the majority. It is a distinct minority in any cult, in any moment in time, that is leading the patterns of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being within every cult in a more intelligent direction. Now, what is intelligence? Most cults will not define intelligence intelligently, because to do so is to undermine 90% of what that cult is doing. Because 95% of what every cult is doing, their pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being, is behaving in a way that is suboptimal relative to the alternatives. Now, every human being in the history of humanity has wanted to feel sustainably better, has wanted to avoid feeling chronically worse, and has wanted to sustainably meet their human needs to survive, to feel secure, to have love and belonging, to earn self-esteem by moving towards one's own values and ideals, to develop one's own talents and bring them abundantly into the world, creating value, and to become part of something bigger than ourselves, to transcend the limited cult of the ego, the limited sense of self. Every human being in history has desired this. And intelligence is the measure of success. Intelligence is the measure of success at transforming, at transmuting energy into that goal, sustainable well-being. The goal is a default. The goal is standard. Every single human being in the history of humanity has wanted to feel better. And not just go up in a spike and crash the next day with a cocaine hit. They want to feel sustainably better. And they want to be masterful in feeling sustainably better. They want to have more fun. Why? Because it's more fun to have fun than to fail, than to be mediocre, than to be miserable. That's a given. So the intelligence, the competency of a human being can be measured by the efficiency with which they transform energy, time, money, natural resources, attention, emotion, energy, into sustainable well-being. A highly intelligent individual creates vast wealth in sustainable human well-being out of nothing. That's life, isn't it? Vast wealth out of nothing. The best scientists in the world talk about the Big Bang. It's a little bit of a miracle. It's a bit of an act of faith. Do you mean to say, Mr. Materialist, that you want me to believe that first there was nothing, and wait for it, out of nothing came everything, and it just began with a poof, and it's been going ever since, and out of nothing, less than the size of a pea, out of nothing, billions of life-affirming planets in our universe alone, billions of planets estimated out of nothing. And one of those tiny little planets, this one planet, out of nothing. Millions upon millions of different species. Species of animals, species of plants, species of microorganism, species of insect, millions, out of nothing. Out of absolutely nothing is coming an infinite variety of everything. That's all you have to believe, because just have faith. That's what we said happened. And because we're getting a little bit esoteric, it happened for absolutely no reason. And we know that. If you believe that, you can believe in rationalist, reductionist, modern, materialistic, chauvinistic science. But that's the promise. Out of nothing, poof, everything. And it's just getting bigger and more of it every single day. Well, that's pretty intelligent, wouldn't you say? If you were to measure the intelligence of life, you mean you created all of this out of absolutely nothing. You're iterating life every single day. Life gets more and more efficient. Cell phones start out as big blocks that can barely do calls, and now they do camera. Life gets more and more efficient every single day, every single year. And we're a part of that. How intelligent are we? How efficiently do we transform energy, time, money, natural resources, attention, feelings? Do we transform energy into sustainable human well-being? That's the measure of intelligence. Now, we would have us believe, not only are we number one as a cult, But it doesn't matter if you're happy. It doesn't matter if you're growing. It doesn't matter if you're a better version of you than the two family systems that synergized and iterated in a new expression of life. That doesn't matter. What matters is how much bits of paper are in your bank account. What matters is how many degrees do you have over here. Do you know there's a negative correlation with happiness and university degrees? The people who have the most degrees, multiple postdoctorate degrees, this and that, 2, 3 PhDs, etc., are statistically less likely to be intelligent than the general public. If you take an average Mexican kid on the street playing soccer, they are more likely to be alive, happy, present, and in their body than, let's say, the 1,000 top doctorate, multidisciplinary, multiple, they just pursued intelligence to the nth degree of our cult. And they are less likely to be happy than you and I, more likely to be depressed. It's not a very good promise, is it? Be healthy, wealthy, and wise. Go to university, then do this, then get another degree, then start teaching other people to get degrees and end up less happy? Or a cult of law, and you too can be an attorney, a judge, and be statistically more miserable than the general population? People in prison, the wardens in prison, the judges, the attorneys, and the prisoners, all negatively correlated with well-being. Join the top of your cult. Be part of the legal profession. Be part of the educational profession. Fit into some dogma. If you're a top CEO of a company, become wealthy. If you're a top CEO of a company, you're going to be dealing with certain stresses you're not dealing with in the middle. One of them being, I thought this was all going to make me so happy. It's not. What do I do next? And of course, the cult has no answer. Because cults don't think. The cult is the unconscious part of the pattern. Now, in the cult of high, you learn that sexuality is good, that you should be sexual. You learn that this room, this space, is a room and a space of love. Now, in the cult of America, in the cult of England, in the cult of Germany, you get mixed messages about sex. You're dirty, going back to the greatest sin. If you look at the slurs, if you look at the insults that define our cult, you find dirt is one of them. You find fucking is another one. You find shit is another one. And you start seeing a pattern, because shit is fertilizer for dirt. So if dirt is dirty, and you see, the thing in a dogma, in a dogmatic slur, is it doesn't make any sense. It's self-referential. There's no outside data that says, wait a minute. Why are we singling out dirt as the curse, as the symbol of all bad things? Why? Why do we pick dirt? Any particular reason? So let's test the hypothesis, because being dirty is, at the foundation of Western cults. Cleanliness is close to godliness. Dirtiness is close to what? Satanic worship? Who knows? Anyway, dirt. You take dirt out of the equation. And this is where science and cults don't see eye to eye. So you take dirt out of the equation. You say, okay, fine. We don't want to be bad. Dirt is bad. Let's just get rid of it. So you get rid of all the dirt on the planet. You start to see a problem almost immediately. First of all the plants are dead in, 1 to 3 days? No more plants. And right after there's no more plants, then all the vegetarian humans and animals die within another couple of days. And then all the carnivorous animals that fed on the vegetarians, they all die. And all dirt, all life is eliminated. So to destroy all life by condemning dirt as a slur, as a curse, is patently absurd. In other words, to believe, to buy into the cult, you have to go insane. And of course, the cult isn't satisfied by eliminating all dirt, by condemning, by condemning all life to doom. It has to get rid of the source of dirt, which is shit. You see, dead leaves are shit of plants, and they create dirt. Animal droppings, bird droppings, are fertilizer for dirt. They're part of the ecology. So you're going 2 levels back in the destruction of life. Then we go back one further, because all iteration, all life is responsiveness. It's the dance of change. You see, and one of the best tools in life's toolbox is to take 2 patterns of energy that are distinct and figure out how to combine them in various ways to generate a 3rd pattern of energy, a synergy, a distinct pattern of energy that is formulated, that grows out of the underlying 2 energies and is more intelligent, more efficient than the pattern of energy that existed before. This is how life has created something out of nothing. It's wonderful. And it's called fucking. It's called mating. It's called joining, partnering, synergizing, creating. It's called life. So if you're afraid of life, if you're afraid of change, if you're afraid of growth, if you're afraid of evolution, then it makes sense to condemn dirt and the source of dirt, which is fucking, and sex. And so we do. We are afraid of life because all cults are trying to maintain a lie. They rest upon a lie. 90% of what we do rests upon a lie. And the lie is that what we're doing is highly intelligent. When in reality, you can pick just about any single thing that you and I do, and certainly anything that our cult is doing, be it education, be it science, be it the way psychology is being conducted, be it the way trauma is being treated, be it the way crime is being escalated, be it the way violence is being escalated, being the way scapegoating is occurring, being the way diet is occurring, being the way sleep is occurring, the way media is occurring, the way money is flowing around. Every single one of these patterns of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being is relatively low on the intelligence continuum in relationship to optimum, in relationship to highly intelligent. In other words, it's consuming vast amounts of energy, but delivering very low yields of sustainable human well-being, mentally, emotionally, physically, sexually, financially, socially, culturally, energetically. In other words, we're doing a terrible job as members of our cults, members of our own ego cult, of the cult of belief, members of our community cults. Because this narrowband conscious mind can only digest and respond to a very, very tiny amount of all the data, of all the information that's flowing around us. And because of that, we fixate. We focus our little narrow beam on one thing at a time. I've got to go to the gym. You know, you could dig a little deeper in that one and say, why exactly am I paying to get in my car, to spew out gas fumes, to go to a place I don't want to go, to move my body around, and then feel overworked and like I don't have enough time, and come home and there's all the things that require my body to move around, to chop the wood, to carry in the groceries, to paint the wall, to touch up this thing here, to put up some shelves, to help the neighbor carry in these rocks, to dig up the weeds. There's all these things that require my body to move in all these different ways that I don't have time for because I'm going to the gym. Yeah, but that's too much to think about. Then I'd have to design my own gym routine through chores. I'd have to say, let's go and do 3 of these chores to move my arm muscles. Let's go and do these things to move my legs. Let's run to the printer. Oh my gosh, we're breaking another cult taboo. It's uncool to run. It's uncool to race around the aisles in Whole Foods. It's very uncool. Well, what's cool? And why did cool get to be cool? Who sanctioned coolness relative to warmth? Was it the traumatized children overwhelmed with grief and pain that wanted to put that on ice, that wanted to descend into the reptilian, the sociopathic domains that are freezing cold, that are not affected, that show no empathy for self or other, that are cool? I have no feelings. I'm cool. I've put them on ice. I've got everything under control. Was it people in pain that sanctioned being cool as an ideal relative to being warm, overflowing out of control? And of course, to run suggests that that the cult might be out of control. It's not cool. And we don't like people who are not cool. So you've got to be cool so you can belong. And there's a very important distinction point in the hierarchy of needs in determining whether to be self-referencing or other-referencing. In a parentally illiterate, in a socially illiterate, in an emotionally illiterate, in a psychologically illiterate, in a traumatically illiterate culture, where parents receive little or no formal training in parenting, where human beings receive little or no scientific training on the fuel of feelings and how to create worlds with it, where we receive no information on microculture design, on the design of a cult, but instead are bludgeoned into passive acceptance of the cult. Why would you imagine there would be fun, there would be joy? As a state, as a chronic state in the population of a traumatically illiterate, relationally illiterate, psychologically illiterate, emotionally illiterate, socially and sexually illiterate population. Why would you imagine fun would be the byproduct of so much ignorance? Now, in a traumatic culture, a cult that regularly traumatizes its people and leaves them there in a traumatized state, not knowing what to do themselves and surrounded by ignorant people who do not know how to respond to them. in a state of chronic pain, might being cool, might freezing all feelings, easing the pain, drinking another bottle, might that not have appeal? Might addiction to work, addiction to sex, addiction to food, addiction to speed, addiction to power, addiction to intensity, addiction to rage, addiction to shame, might not addiction be a pleasant coping mechanism, a distraction for a level of trauma and pain we know how to cause and sustain, but not to heal and integrate and understand? Of course, being cool, numbing out on some of those things would have some appeal. And so in a chauvinistic cult that denies the science of all that is feminine in men and in women, we get being cool as a substitute. If we cannot heal the pain, if we cannot create the joy, let's numb all feelings and pretend they're not there. Let's shame and isolate those who feel things intensely. Let's belittle and patronize those who are more feminine. And be cool. I'm cool. You want to be with me? You won't feel anything. We'll be cool together. We'll look good. And that's better than feeling good if you can't control your feelings anyway. When you're in high levels of pain, when you have not met your human needs to survive, to feel secure in that survival, to have love and belonging, to have self-esteem, to develop your talents and know what they are, and bring them abundantly and valuably into the world, and become part of something bigger than self, one is dependent on the mother. One is dependent on the parent. One is in a childlike state. Every infant, every child cannot meet their human needs, are not dependent. Put a 2-year-old out on a desert island and see how long they survive. See if they develop language. See if they can think. Take a 6-year-old and send them out in the wilderness. A parent, a family system can kill, and often did. If we look at 1100 years ago, when the Christian, the Catholic Church, you want to kill your child, it's not welcome, it's too many, maybe it's a little sickly, it's fine, as long as it's not baptized. We, the Church, confer humanity to the infant until such time. Don't worry about abortion. You can literally take your baby into a pit, just dig a pit in the backyard, the backwoods, break the neck of your child, throw it in the ground, and as long as it hasn't been baptized yet, it's not a human being. Boy, how things have changed. Now, abort a 1-inch embryo and you are committing sacrilege. 1100 years ago, the priests, go along, kill your children, just as long as they haven't been blessed. Once they've been blessed, now they're the children of the Lord. You can kill your own children, but not the children of the Lord. So, a parent can kill their children psychologically, physically, sexually, emotionally, mentally. A parent can drive their children insane. You don't think it can be done systematically, effectively? To drive a human being into absolute torment, doubting themselves, frightened of who they are? It's done all the time. And why would we expect joy, love, growth, abundance to emerge out of such chronic, systematic illiteracy, so much willful ignorance. You see, because the reason a cult doesn't teach its people to think, to feel, to observe, is because cults crumble. The dogma, the ossified traditions and cult rules of every power system on earth crumbles in the face of intelligence. It withers. Wait a minute, send my kid to school so that 98% of them can come out less creative than they went in. Send my kid to postdoctorate so that there's a statistical correlation with depression. Wait a minute. Don't we look at data? Aren't we actually, if we're so materialistic and scientific and rational, don't we actually look at data? Don't we care how people feel? Isn't it concerning that the average American will leave 1,000 times more waste in both CO2 and, quote, garbage, will consume 1,000 times more resources and generate 100 metric tons of unbiodegradable waste? Doesn't it concern us that the average human being in the United States will leave a 100-ton pile of garbage in their wake, 1,500 metric tons of CO2 in the atmosphere, and be less alive, less vital, less healthy in many ways, and more depressed than the Native American indigenous people who did not leave a kilogram of non-biodegradable waste, for whom the land was sacred, and who could have lived here for another 1,000 years with less ecological degradation than us in 100. Doesn't it concern us that the energy consumption is increasing and the well-being is decreasing? That lifespans of loneliness and mediocrity are being measured by lifespan increase rather than quality of presence and well-being. Isn't that something to pay attention to ask about? And yet the cult collapses. The cult deteriorates. One's ego, one's identity deteriorates, collapses in the face of data. Almost all ossified structures, all habits of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being are problematic at one time or another, are highly inefficient at iterative generators of well-being. So what do you do with that? It's a challenge in a paradigm in which it is being seriously debated. A, is your consciousness real? Does your consciousness exist? 1. And 2, if it does it matter? And 3, is there any intelligence in your consciousness, or is it just pure random delusionary, doesn't matter? It is, of course, funny that media is fanatically produced by people who believe that who they are is an illusion, that their thoughts are an illusion, that their thoughts are a random iteration of chance and have absolutely no meaning, but they want you to buy their book. Why would you buy the book of someone who has no value, who isn't real, and who claims that everything that they are saying is not only not there, but meaningless. Why do they need to be heard so loudly in their protestations, in their proselytizing about the negation of all life, of all meaning? Why do there need to be prisons if things are just purely random? But they'll vote for them. They'll get out. They'll buy my book. I believe that everything I say doesn't matter. You've got to believe it too. Why? It doesn't matter who you are if what you are is sheer random chance. It doesn't matter what you say. No responsibility. Because if it's all predetermined, you're not really responding, you're just in an interactive dynamic. So, when you have not met your needs, you depend on the family, you depend on the authority. You're a children of your state, you're a children of your parents, you're children of your religion. You're a member, a dependent relationship in a codependent relationship with your cult. Your cult of family, your cult of community, your cult of people, your cult of species. And in order to fit and get sanctuary inside the cult, you have to follow the rules, the dogmas of the cult. None of this, none of that. This cannot be asked. When Uncle Harry comes home at 4 a.m. drunk, after going to church the day before and preaching about abstinence, this cannot be asked. Now why, you say, why can't it be asked why Pastor Harry has to come home drunk after his sermons? Why can't we ask it? It's an interesting question, far more interesting than the glaring silence or wondering what Pope John did in the 15th century. Why did Uncle Harry talk about abstinence and come home drunk at 4 a.m? It's the most interesting question at the table. Don't you dare mention this to your father. Why? Well, the unraveling of the cult. Well, what's being unraveled? Well, here. Don't tell anyone I said this, because this is off the record. But, you see, priests are ordained by God. And God is all-powerful and all-knowing and all things. So why did God ordain Dad? It sounds like God made a mistake. If he chose Dad to represent his teaching and then he does the opposite. No, but that's what we can't question. You see, Dad has his job, and we have a rank in the cult because that is unquestioned. If we start questioning, it seems like God made a mistake here. It seemed to made a mistake over there. He ordained pedophiles. That was God's plan. 5% of all of his priests, pedophiles. Don't ask the question. Because if God makes mistakes, then why would we listen to these priests? We'd say, he obviously made a mistake with you. Go fuck yourself with your hypocrisy. He obviously made a mistake with you too. Now, if priests are fucked up and God makes mistakes, why on earth would we take a nice Sunday afternoon to go be guilt-tripped by their hypocrisy? We wouldn't. Okay, so now there's no church, there's no God? See, the cult is starting to unravel. The church is unraveling, the cult is so if there's no God, why exactly am I not stealing strawberry ice cream like Mom does before dinner? You'll be punished. See, no. God makes mistakes. He's not being punished. The priests make mistakes. You certainly make mistakes. So why would I, the young one, the small one, why am I the only one to be made the scapegoat for the entire baloney of the system. You see, the whole thing unravels if the silence is broken. If one child says, "Uncle Harry, can you hear me through your stupor?" "Harry, okay, do you still remember yesterday when you preached abstinence to all those people who then came and gave you money after you told them that God values the poor? Okay. Why are you hungover?" That's all it takes, and the whole thing falls apart. Now that's a fragile system. Now nature is not so fragile. Nature is resilient. You kill off one of nature's species, it does one of two things. Either you set the balance off so much that you end up being wiped out, and now nature's gotten rid of the species that kills off other species, and now they can continue to evolve in peace. For example, you cut all the trees down and increase the temperature velocity and do this. At some point, you destroy the balance in the ecology to such an extent that your own species is wiped out. You see, and nature has time. Life has endless amounts of time. So what if the United States blows up the entire world with its stockpile of nuclear armaments? No problem for life. First of all, she's got 1 billion other life potentiated planets in the vicinity. She's got another 1 trillion years. We ain't seen nothing 24 billion years. Give life 2 or 3 trillion. And then see what magical, amazing, intelligent life is like throughout the universe. You know, because any one of those billions, it's like dice. It's like dice. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Let's just give you a cauldron of possibility to grow in. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Okay, you've got time. Figure it out over the next 1 trillion years. No one's counting. No one's going to cross you out up you didn't make it. If your planet turns into a supernova and does this and that and the other and whatever, fine. You'll be spat out the other side of some dimension. In another 1 trillion years, you'll be amazing. You'll be amazing. Let's see what you can do in 1 trillion years. Oh, humans blew themselves up 100 years ago. The Earth is already revegetating. This organism, give it a few billion years, it'll be back. It'll be back. The fragments that shattered and things will coalesce. A new pattern will emerge in the field of what could be, in the drive, the innate drive towards sustainable well-being, towards growth, towards development, towards ultimate transcendence, towards evolution. Life's not giving up by giving out freedom and choice to learn and grow. She's got time. Trillions upon trillions of years. Long before your identity, your pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, has been thankfully reabsorbed into the ecology to be replaced by a new pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, and being. And as physicists point out, there is no death. There is no destruction of energy. Energy just changes from one form to another in a field of life that is so intelligent and so powerful, she has created all of this out of less than a pea in only 25 billion years, with infinity in front of us all. And we may feel so upset that our pattern the one that I'm identifying with, my cult, my community, my guru, my teaching, my truth, my identity. Because it's I, and it's I. This is the one I identify. It's this pattern, not that pattern, not that pattern, not that pattern. None of those patterns that are having way more fun than me. I'm not identified with them. No. I'm this one, and no one's going to change me. But of course, give it 1 billion years. And as you step on the path of life, your first step, stepping stone number 1. It's a step forward. You're moving towards something. And stepping stone number 2 is also moving forward, and also moving forward, and also moving forward. But you know what? Stepping stone number 1 is now moving backwards. If you cling to an identity, I am stepping stone number 1. No one's going to change me. These are the politics of this family. These are the morals of this cult. Forever, long live Caesar, right? The great British Empire. Long live us, idealizing a fixed, rigid pattern, hanging on. Then we're still identified. We define ourselves with stepping stone number 1. But imagine how many billions of stepping stones life has taken while we clung to the known, as all traumatized people do. Trauma in infancy and in childhood leads directly to the belief that the universe, answering Einstein's most profound question, is not a friendly place. When the parents, when the cult does not attune to the infant and the child, but demands that the child and the infant violently attune to them. When the giants dominate the young, the small, rather than being in service, the reptilian brain comes online and says, hello, you are surrounded by reptiles. Every one of them is sociopathic, narcissistic, self-centered, ignorant, and fear-based. You need me to survive. I am your reptilian brain. We will run from energy patterns that are bigger than you. It's called flight. We will bully, dominate, and take from energy patterns that are smaller than you. It's called fight, and win. And we will freeze when those are not available. And if there's a powerful sociopath in the vicinity, we will make ourselves indispensable. We will fawn or please or ass-lick the one in power until you become so indispensable to the tyrant, to the figurehead, to the cult leader, that they will take you along with them, that they will protect you not because they are a human being with empathy, but because you made yourself useful. And they want useful people around them who they can dispose of when they are no longer useful. But if you can figure out the code to keep being more useful, you see, you were useful to your dictator when you learned word processing. Yes, but now that's going out of style. Now you need to be good on YouTube. You still got it in it? Do you want to make yourself useful to me? Okay, off you go. Off you go. If you can figure out how to be useful for the sociopath on top in a scarcity, fear-based mentality, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, gushing over the great leader, the Hitler, of the power structure in our mind, in our family, in our cult, in our species. The reptilian brain, the cold brain, the cool brain, nice and cool. No feelings, no response. The cool brain of the reptile. To fight what is smaller and win, to run from what is bigger to avoid losing, to freeze and hide in secrecy and lies, and to fawn, to be useful. Please don't leave me behind. I'll say nice things about you. We all know you're an asshole, but I'll say nice things about you. I'll never tell you to your face. I'll open the door for you. I'll carry your box. Just take me along up the ladder in a structure that is pathologically insane, be it a school system, a corporation, a government. Take me with you, because I'm a child who needs to survive, feel secure in that survival, needs to belong to the cult, to get outside validation, not self-esteem, to be useful to the cult, not develop my talents, to serve the cult, not bring abundance and value into the world, and to stay the same and resist death, change, and evolution rather than become part of something more. Until we are independent, we depend on the cult. We depend on the system, the financial system, the social system, the community system, the power system, the voting system, the road system, the motor system, the electricity system. We depend on the system, and we have to follow the rules of the system. We cannot question the cult because the cult is so fragile, so frightened of change, so terrified of the unknown, so limited. And ignorant, that a little bit of truth, just a tiny little few dissenters, and the thing falls apart because it's so flimsy. Because what was true 400 years ago is not automatically true today. Because what was true 30 years ago is now the antithesis of the truth it once was. Because stepping stone number 3 is 3 steps backwards when you're standing on stepping stone number 6. The fact that it was a step forward 1,000 years ago when you were, as a species, standing on stepping stone number 2 makes it no less backward when you're standing further ahead. And of course, it depends what we measure. Let's not measure human well-being, because we're not really winning in that dimension. Let's measure the speed of cell phone data transmission. We can figure that out. We may be in an epidemic of loneliness. 20% of our people may be depressed. We may have more suicides, people in so much pain that they take their own life to escape it. We may have more suicides than car accidents in a cult that drives constantly for thousands of miles every year. More people killing themselves than ending up hit on the road. But we don't have the intelligence to lift and win in these domains. So let's make sure that the iPhone is 1 millisecond faster for the next $1,000 spent. We couldn't possibly spend $1,000 to heal the PTSD of a single child when we don't, as a cult, understand what trauma is, what PTSD is, what a lifetime of trauma does to the cult, and how patently insane even buying a phone is, as long as there are traumatized children and grown children in grown-up bodies all around us. Because trauma, like everything else, is a virus, is a meme, and it spreads. Gary Slutkin points out that violence, physical violence, is an epidemic. That like a fire, sprouts more violence and more violence and more violence. And like the war on terror, the war on a feeling, the ignorance is right in front of us. You cannot end terror in the world by having young boys in Michigan with drone video games that are bombing apartment complexes of innocent civilians halfway around the world. You don't get less terror when you kill 1 million innocent Iraqis searching for weapons of mass destruction that arrived the moment United States troops occupied a foreign country. You don't need to find a weapon of mass destruction when you're willing to kill 1 million innocent civilians looking. You're it. Way more deadly than Saddam's fictitious cakes of uranium. Traumatized people hurt themselves and others. And we are a trauma-illiterate cult capable of traumatizing its people and incapable. If you go to the best centers in the United States today and say, I want a guaranteed fix for my PTSD, they'll say, we don't have that. We're busy getting the next YouTube app cover. We're busy developing the new iPhone interface. We are busy getting an extra 5% out of the batteries to fuel our cars. But you know, it didn't occur to us to send out a free email to every American asking, how much pain are you in? How lonely are you? What's working and what's not working? And it didn't occur to us for free to see, is there anyone in the cult that knows how to deal with this? And what are they doing? And what can they share with the rest of us? Because that would be free, and that would be intelligent. And we really need to spend another $1 trillion upgrading the military, or buying more fast food and getting fatter, or buying bigger televisions so we can forget the memories of our pain a little bit more efficiently, because we certainly can't heal them in a cult that shames you for having them. We're in a cult. We're in a pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being. And within the cults, there are other cults. We're in a childlike state. Most of us are too scarce, are too frightened out of that scarcity in our survival, security, love and belonging, self-esteem, knowing and developing our talents, bringing those talents abundantly into the world, becoming part of something bigger than ourselves. Most of us are too scarce, are too frightened to break with the cult. And if we need the cult as we need a parent desperately to cling on to say, please don't fall away. Please don't admit that you haven't a clue what you're doing. because a child can't digest that. A child needs to believe in Donald Trump. Make America great again. I'll bring back the jobs. I'll get rid of the vaccine. I'll do this, I'll do that. Everything's wonderful. Oh, thank you. Everyone needs a high. Human Awareness Institute, committed to the world where everyone wins. Committed to love. We need this. Because how are we going to do it on our own? Psychologically illiterate. Unable to design a microcult of abundance. And so we can't question, why is it that Peter Sandhill is accepting money to sexually abuse high participants? Why is it that team members cannot confront their sexual abusers? Why is it that other sexual abuse survivors are told that theirs is the only case when it clearly isn't? Why is it that Ann Watts says that it's better for a sexual abuse survivor not to tell anyone about the sexual abuse in the facilitator body? You see, because there's an unraveling. Why is it that these people are making all the decisions and saying you can't be a facilitator if they don't know what they're doing? If they cannot heal the damage that they cause? It's too frightening for a child to see that their parent is flawed, that their parent made massive mistakes and that their life is in danger in the care of that parent. It is too dangerous and frightening and overwhelming for an infant to see that. So when a parent hits a child, when a parent molests a child, the child does not say, I have a fucked up parent and a very small chance of coming out sane and healthy. The child says, I'm bad. I'm unlovable. My parent, I've got to emulate them. And another abuser is born. This is the crisis in the transition between the reptilian brain of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, dependent on secrecy, dependent on fear, dependent on power over, and the threat of scarcity. You'll be cast out. Why is it that a sexual abuse survivor is cast out for telling the truth rather than embraced? Why is it that Dane Rose is the only one not allowed to post on high forums? And how is it that the cult is so fragile? What would happen if everyone understood what was going on? How much empowerment would be felt? How much change? How much iteration? When you understand, yeah, I get you guys met in your back room and said this, but it's wrong. There's the data. Let's bring in life. Could the system withstand the shock? Nixon didn't think so, so he outlawed psychedelics, which fomented new perspectives and change. He didn't think that he could survive the onslaught of new data and questions posed by a new identity. And so he bribed and lied and paid off scientists to falsify the data to ban the agents of alchemy. Nixon thought Timothy Leary was the most dangerous man in America because children were listening to those ideas, because chaos is the first step in transformation. You cannot turn one thing into another. If I want to transform this hand, I've got to remove and then reconstitute that energy and put something back. There is a cult in every ego, the questions that cannot be asked. Why is it that when I tell Claire, my high lover, the truth that is most uncomfortable, she hangs up the phone and will never speak to me again? You see, when you are a child, when you are traumatized and regressed, you are a child. When you are a child and an adolescent, you are in scarcity and you are incapable of meeting your own human needs. And as long as you are incapable of meeting the need of something you need, you will feel fear around the possibility of having your needs unmet. And when you cannot meet your own human needs, and no infant, child, or adolescent can, it's difficult to grow up to transcend the cult dogma. It's difficult to become an adult, which is why we have so few of them. Because an adult can afford to see the flaws in their parents, can afford to see the BS in their therapist, can afford to see the laughable hypocrisy of their minister. An adult can see the totalitarian state of a legal system that seizes property and family members for crossing its dogmas, even when it is the problem. Whether it's the war on terror or the war on drugs, they're first of all mislabeled. You can't go to war on a feeling, and powder is not your enemy. If you want to be more honest, you can say it's the war on people's freedom to compulsively manage their pain and their trauma in a traumatically illiterate cult that provides no alternatives. So let's punish the people that reveal the symptoms of defects, because it ruins the illusion for the rest of us. The illusion is, of every scapegoat and punishment dynamic, is that there's nothing wrong with us. You see, the illusion that High wishes to create is that they're perfect and wonderful. That it's a bizarre anomaly that Peter Sandhill, who they chose, trained, and unanimously recommended, would sexually abuse a High participant for money, and then he just refunded the money like 6 years later. It takes a High facilitator 6 years to refund the money paid by a client for being abused. That's somehow what we need to learn from, and that's love. What is that? That when that can't be talked about, if it can be talked to me, find a facilitator who will stand on the other side of the camera and publicly dialogue and explore these issues. I can't find one. I've been cut off for broaching the unbroachable topic. And if you're a part of that, you're a child. Why cannot you question authority? Well, I know where I can't. Why was it so traumatic? Why did I develop PTSD when I understood that I might have to choose between dying and belonging to High? That the lies and the truths in High dogma were so damaging to my health and well-being that if I went along with them, I might die. But if I stood up for sanity, I would lose my therapist's approval, my support network, my access to touch, my access to voice and free speech in the community, my access to workshops. You cross the line. It's fine to talk about team members abusing people. That's okay, because that doesn't threaten the authority system. But if you insist on pointing out the egregious, illegal behavior and traumatic abuse of Human Awareness Institute facilitators who are unlicensed, who do not have the ethics or the training to do excellently in the face of the wounds and the misunderstandings and the insanity that they cause, if you confront that, it shatters the power structure. The illusion is lost for everyone. The children have to grow up, and they're not ready. They don't want to grow up. So they're going to find another guru, another one that's pretending to be perfect. And that's true. Children who are not ready to change will find another parent. And every parent says, because I said so. Do it because I said so. This is the way it is. And if you want to be my child, you have to do like this, and brush your teeth like this, and do like this, and fold your clothes like this, and not like that, and do it on this. And okay, you're my child. I'll protect you. Wonderful. Because I'm too traumatized and regressed. I feel too small and helpless to protect myself, to form a new pattern. I will fit into your pattern. And one guru gets exposed and they rush off to another guru. One channeled entity, it finally doesn't work after 10 years. Fine, we're going to find another channeled entity to tell me what to do. This party was corrupt and horrible and all that, so now I'm switching to the other party. You were a horrible girlfriend, you're so horrible, now I'm switching to you. You're wonderful. Oh, now you're horrible as well, now I'm switching to you. I've got to maintain a child. I've got to look for someone to meet my needs, to take care of me. Because I don't know how. I don't even know how to think. I know how to memorize, and I know how to behave inside my cult. The thing that is killing me and protecting me at the same time. That's destroying me and helping me survive at the same time. That's wasting vast amounts of my and other people's energy and bringing well-being at the same time. It's all about the ratio. Intelligence is measured by the efficiency with which energy, time, money, and natural resources is transformed into sustainable well-being. High is a cult that cannot be asked why sexually abusing a high participant is not a high issue for a cult in which all the facilitators promised said participant, we are committed to transforming ignorance and fear and to a world in which you and everyone else wins. How is it okay for that client to pay to develop PTSD by all of the high facilitators and then be punished and ostracized for threatening to open up the door into all of the many imperfections, to the fact that the superhuman facilitator are not superhuman, but as flawed in their own relationships as anyone else. They've just got very good at putting on a workshop in which they appear superhuman and do indeed behave superhumanly. Meeting all 100 people, loving everyone unconditionally, hearing what everyone has to say, carrying illegal secrets from anyone who wants to share it, dealing with rapes, dealing with violation, dealing with STDs, all in 72 hours. It's amazing. But high is a cult that you can do certain things in that you cannot do in the cult of America. In the cult of America, I can go through 24 hours and not have a single 15-minute window to share the truth. In the cult of high, at a support group, I might have 5 minutes once a week. That's 500% more than in the cult of America, and I want it. In the cult of America, I cannot have respectful touch with a stranger. In the cult of high, I can. In the cult of America, anonymous sex happens without a safe sex conversation. In the cult of high, you do learn about STDs and physical stuff. You just don't learn about all the psychological issues. In the cult of America, you don't get to meet strangers naked in hot tubs. In the cult of high, that's the norm. In the cult of America, love is undefined. In the cult of high, love is undefined. Similar levels of confusion. In the cult of America, few people practice active listening. In the cult of high, some people practice active listening some of the time. In the cult of America, feelings are not welcome. In the cult of high, feelings are not welcome about illegal activity about the facilitators, but are welcomed in most other areas. So you have a different cult. You have a different set of dogma. This is the room of love. You were abused here? No, no, no. This is the room of love. You were loved here. We're committed to ending ignorance and fear. You're ignorant about this, and this, and you've been with us for 10 years and you're just as ignorant? Well, you don't get to ask that because we're busy loving and making the whole world win, which you'd realize if you weren't so self-important. I mean, we're just getting started. So what's taboo in the cult of high? The roughly 3% of participants and team members who come away severely traumatized in a cult that is trauma literate, that blames the participant in the team, that shames the participant in the team, and doesn't know how to respond and heal. That's taboo in the cult of high. It's taboo in the cult of high to let participants who have been sexually abused freely communicate and disclose that fact. Information, data, is taboo in the cult of high. In the cult of high, if you get abused by a participant, a team member, or a facilitator, you will be asked by another facilitator to pay them to mediate or hire them to heal the wound that you wouldn't have had if you hadn't hired the facilitator or whatever for the first place. Now, this is a little self-serving, a little corrupt, a little shaky, so we're not going to talk about that either. In the cult of high, you will have a safe physical sex conversation so that you will not get physical diseases, but you will not have a safe emotional conversation, a safe psychological conversation. You will not have a trauma history as part of having sex, even though sex can re-traumatize, and does many people. You will not have a trauma history. You will have an STD history consistent with the chauvinism of America. America says that the physical body is all that's important. It's part of rationalist, reductionist, materialist science. So high says, fine, we'll satisfy your chauvinism, and we'll teach you how to mitigate diseases in the threat of sex. Physical diseases that way. If you get traumatized, if you get overwhelmed, if you get shamed, we'll give you a support group where you can talk about it, and then you can go and do it again. And do it again. We won't have a safe psychological conversation where you discuss your patterns. Here's how I always get abused. Here's my role in it. And here's the other person's role. And I don't want to do that next time. And just so you know, what do you think? I'd like to have sex with you, touch your body, but I don't want to do all that. What have you been doing in your patterns? Nobody wants to at High. I've tried with more than 1,000 women. This is the most single resisted topic in the Human Awareness Institute, in its community. Women in droves will have sex with you if you meet certain criteria, largely chauvinistic. They will not take the time to unravel the psychological patterns, their traumatic history, to define what love is and is not, to define healthy boundaries, to create a safe container to hold the feelings and the charge of two psyches carrying two family systems in the wings. High will not tell you what is trauma, what is PTSD. High will not tell you how many percentage of its participants develop trauma and PTSD during the workshops and work with the facilitators and in lover relationships with the community. All of that is masked under the rule of love. So there is a taboo and a law of silence. And if you write to the facilitators, give it a try, they will not reply. Why do you have to tell this? What about this? Said, could we talk about this publicly? You may be banned. More likely you'll be pulled aside and confidently assured that this cannot get out for your benefit. That's the protocol. That's how you silence innovation, thought, awareness, and choice. Because High is founded on the right to choose. But High is choosing to conceal the information most necessary for you, me, and everyone else to make an informed choice. High omits in the safe sex conversation the statistical exploration of traumas and abuse patterns with the other person who is likely to play out their pattern with you, just as you are likely to play out the pattern with them, all the more so when you know nothing about one another and it's all unconscious because you chose to have sex with your body before you had sex with your mind and your heart. You didn't have sex with the data. You didn't say, you know what? Your father is a sex addict. You've taken that pattern on. I was molested by my father. I've carried so much shame from my father's sex addiction. And I feel worthless. And if you go and have sex with other women, I'm going to feel worthless again because I already believe I'm worthless, because my child believed I'm worthless, because my dad told me I was worthless. And I was too scared to question authority in a totalitarian state where people who questioned the boss were hit, were shamed, were fired, were cast out, and I'm a kid on the inside, and I can't survive. So I can't stand up to you. I can only be hurt by you. I'm a child, and you're the abusive parent, and we're getting ready to escalate and play out that role without any conversation about how that sex is going to look. What are the boundaries of that sex? High will not tell you the statistical odds in a given partner or in the community of any one of the social and psychological diseases that permeate the cult of America, the cult of England, the cult of Germany, our Western cults. High will instead mask that by saying this is the room of love. Therefore, just put on the blinders and call whatever is happening love. You try to talk with a woman and say, you know, what are the biggest things you don't want to play out again with another man? Well, this and this and this. And you say, okay, well, I do those things. It looks like you found me because I do those things. Now you're telling me the pattern's broken, but the fact that you've picked me and 3 girlfriends have told me I do those patterns, and you're telling me that I don't have this pattern? When I'm telling you I and 3 girlfriends think that I do, tells me that not only have you successfully found someone to play out your pattern with, you're in denial about that, which means you're dangerous to yourself and to me. That's not love. That's abuse. That's unconsciousness. That's addiction. Can we talk about that? No. This is taboo for a new age high woman. It's taboo because it asks her to grow up, to be an adult. I don't want to do that. I'll just find someone else who says that I'll love you for all eternity and do this and oh, that's wonderful. And then my nice little child, 6 months later, seeing you with another woman. You promised to love me forever. You're a horrible person. I'm getting rid of you. I'm never gonna... But you'll love me forever, won't you? My new father? These things cannot be talked about in the cult of America at all. They can be talked about around the edges. But as soon as I put that protocol in place, I will have a relationship with any woman who's willing to show up with 4 hours of quality time a week or more. And we begin the relationship talking about all of this, all of it. What's a friend to you? What's not a friend to you? What are deal breakers to you? What patterns do you want? What patterns do you not want? What's your sexual appetite? What's your ideal for how often you want to have sex? You want to have sex 3 times a month and be monogamous? I want to have sex every day and be monogamous. Or have an open relationship and have sex every day with people that want to have sex every day. They don't fit, do they? How are we going to fit that? Do we say goodbye? Do we just be friends? How do we deal with that? Let's just go with the flow of dysfunction. Let's go round the circle again unconsciously and wonder why we arrived at the same place we've always been rising. Oh my goodness, how did this happen again? I didn't ask you a single thing about you. I didn't ask if you've declared bankruptcy 1, 2, or 3 times. I didn't ask what this. I didn't ask what this. How could this happen? My psychic powers of picking someone is evident. Or is it just statistical odds that in a culture where 90% of the people have regressed, repressed traumas, are chauvinistic, are racist, are materialistic, are afraid of confronting authority and can be easily triggered into child and adolescent in an emotionally illiterate framework, that maybe the odds in that betting round are just such that you just pick someone and they've got a 90% chance of fucking you up in one way or another, and you don't have the eyes to see it because you want to believe in a mysterious childhood where love is fated to be, and insane pathological cults just miraculously produce healthy people out of nowhere. You mean you went to this cult's education system? You've worked in this cult, you had parents in this cult, and you're not an amazing person? What's wrong with you? How do you become an adult when you are surrounded by children? How do you grow up when everyone is frightened of authority? These are the crises in the cult of America, in the cult of I.